Good evening. Welcome. Woohoo! Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are so glad to see so many people here interested in learning more about the environment and how we can decrease our impact on our earth. So thank you for being here. For those of you who may not know, Cedar Lane is a liberal, progressive faith community, and we would love to have you join us on a Sunday morning. We care deeply about the environment. We care deeply about our interconnected web, and if that is something you also care deeply about, you would be very welcome here on a Sunday morning, and to any of our other events that we have coming up. Before we begin, I would like to say thank you to the organizers of this event, who include Walter Weiss of the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. Yay, yeah. Darian Unger from the Montgomery County Sierra Club, who will be joining me here soon, so we can give him a round of applause preemptively. As well as the Cedar Lane Environmental Justice Ministry Group, and especially Molly Hauk for bringing this here to Cedar Lane. And Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Action Solutions is one of the organizations that Cedar Lane is a member of, and there are 30 congregations that are part of what they lovingly call MCFACs. So we are proud to be a member of that group as well. I'd also like to say thank you to the panelists, Jane Houlihan, County Council Member Kate Stewart, and Trey Sherrard. So thank you to them. And we do want to leave as much time as we can at the end for questions and for interaction after the film. And so I'm going to turn it over to Darian Unger for some brief words, and then we will get started.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Darian Unger, and I'm chair of the Montgomery County Sierra Club. And welcome. Thanks for coming today to tonight's screening of Plastic People, the hidden crisis of microplastics. And I want to thank the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions and the Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation for hosting this, and for all the environmentalists and environmental groups who are with us on this fight. So thank you. We look forward to showing you this award-winning documentary. What it does is it investigates our functional addiction to plastic and the growing threat of microplastics on human health. Because every bit of plastic that we have breaks down into microplastics. It drifts in the air, it ends up in our water, it mixes into our soil, our food, us, and becomes a permanent part of the environment. Now, we've known for many years that plastic pollution wreaks havoc on wildlife and on air and water quality, but only recently have scientists really focused on the impact on human health. And finding these particles in our bodies, in our organs, in our blood, in our brains, even in the placentas of new mothers. People are ingesting as much as a whole credit card's worth of plastic every week. Delicious, huh? So what are the impacts of these plastics and chemicals on our health? Can we do anything about it? So in this film that we're about to see, acclaimed author and science journalist Zia Tong takes a personal approach by visiting leading scientists around the world, undergoing experiments in her home with food and body, while collaborating with the director, Ben Edelman, in an urgent call for action for all of us to really rethink our relationship with plastic. So in sponsoring tonight's screening and discussion, all of our organizations hope to spread awareness about these dangers and to launch a discussion starting with our own distinguished panel right afterwards, to think about how we can avoid exposure to microplastics and also what public policies would be needed to regulate and reduce the threat. So I invite you to think about this throughout and then save those ideas to share in the discussion after the film. So once again, I want to acknowledge Council President Kate Stewart, who will thank you for coming, and who will also serve on our panel afterwards. And now let's get the show on the road. Thank you very much. More after the movie. Starting with a panel of hope, right? And also audience questions and discussions. So let me just introduce our now three, thank you, panelists. Starting all the way on my right, your left, is Jane Houlihan, who directs research and science communication at Healthy Babies, Bright Futures, a nonprofit protecting children from toxic chemicals in food, water, and everyday products. An environmental engineer and senior vice president for research and environmental working group, research at the Environmental Working Group. She led studies on plastic-related chemicals in people, food, and consumer products. She co-founded the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics and serves on the Science Advisory Board of Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. In the middle, well, I'll introduce everyone, then then we can applaud and then also hear from them and also ask questions and be part of the discussion. In the middle, we have Kate Stewart, who is the president of Montgomery County Council. She represents County Council District 4 and is also the chair of Government Operations and Fiscal Policy and the Audit Committees, and also serves on the Council's Transportation and Environmental Committee, T&E, where in 2025 she led the passage of the Bring Your Own Bag Bill to reduce trash caused by plastic bags. That will go into effect in January. And prior to, we can applaud that one, yes. Yes, that. By the way, that work is ongoing. We're still working on Gaithersburg there. And prior to joining the council, she was the mayor of Tacoma Park. And then finally, on this side, we've got Trey Sherrard, who is the Anacostia Riverkeeper. The mission of the organization is to protect and restore the Anacostia River for everyone who lives, works, and plays in the watershed, including us, and to advocate for the healthy, swimmable, and fishable river for all of its communities. Its programs are centered on trash mitigation, advocacy, water quality, stormwater reduction, and river access. Trey leads advocacy and outreach work to restore and connect people to the Anacostia River, and he's been at ARC for more than 12 years and is a licensed mariner. So what I'd like to do is just start with a very quick 30-second lightning round question just to get things off. What was your, in a sentence or two, what was your quick takeaway from the film? Jane, can I start with you?
First of all, wow, what a film. It really raises an important, critical issue that we need to begin to tackle. Thanks to all the groups who sponsored this, because I think it's really important for us all to know about. I think the film does a great job, first of all, just showing us the extent of pollution, that these pollutants are in all parts of the environment and in all of us. One point I wanted to add that maybe isn't featured as much as these are very different kinds of pollutants than anything we've dealt with in the past. Let's look at something like DDT that we banned a while back. Well, that's been declining in the environment since we took it off the market. Even something like PFAS, forever chemicals, if we manage to get those out of production, they'll just stay level. They won't increase. Microplastics are different. The vast majority of what we've produced are still in really large pieces. If we manage to turn the tap off now, levels of microplastics in the environment will continue to rise for decades and even centuries. So my concern isn't as much for all of us as it is for future generations. Okay. And I think that's what the film raised for me. We need to act now.
Thank you.
Great.
And just in a sentence or two, your quick reaction.
Yeah,
then we're going to do
wow,
more. We're going to do deeper questions.
I will say, I think it was built overwhelming. Knowing that information, but then seeing it all. And the thing that I actually appreciated about the film was how it did go all around the world and look at different communities, how they're being impacted and what they're doing at this time. I thought it was really important because I think here in the United States, we become very centered on what we're doing here and we lose that connection to other places in the world, and I appreciated that look.
All right, thank you. And Trey, your very, very quick take.
Plastic bottles, a lot of that, you kept seeing the bottles in the screen, you keep seeing the bottles in your daily life, and a lot of those microplastics that we're seeing are coming from plastic bottles, not just because they got into the environment, broke up, and then got back into us, but if you're drinking out of them, they are just shedding directly in. So one of the biggest things we could like actually work on here, right, would be something simple like getting rid of bottles.
All right, thanks. Well, I'll ask you to keep that mic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask one specific question to each of the panelists, and then we're going to invite everyone to ask questions themselves. But Trey, so littered single-use plastic that's washed into our rivers is a major preventable source of plastic pollution. And the Anacostia, for which you've shown it to many Sierra Club members, is one of only 3 watersheds in the country that is regulated by the EPA for water quality due to trash and litter. So my question to you is, what has been the impact of local efforts to date to reduce single-use plastic litter in the Anacostia? And then what is the next most impactful solution?
So the District of Columbia led off with a bag fee, right, a bag tax over 15 years ago. They took the #1 visual item of trash, plastic bags, from #1 down to not even the top 10. And the change didn't take 15 years, right? The change was within a year. It was like that. We saw that worked. Montgomery County adopted. It worked here. Prince George's County tried to adopt, was prevented, right? 3 times, I think, at this point. We've seen Prince George's County and Montgomery County now ratchet down even further, thank you, to no plastic bags and a higher charge for paper bags. DC, had we been a state yet, right, would have been the first state to ban styrofoam takeout. Maryland was the first House and Senate to pass it, but the governor sat on a veto-proof majority. Maine took the record book for the first state to ban styrofoam takeout for food, clamshells, paper plates, cups. We don't find as much plastic anymore. When I say we don't find as much plastic anymore, I mean we do, with Riverkeeper, 1 or more large 50-plus person cleanups every other month. We do other cleanups, 20-plus people at least once a month, often more often. We do trash trap management, right? So we've got 8 trash traps in the District of Columbia. We manage half of those. We manage 3 more in Prince George's County. We installed the first one in Montgomery County. And that data piles up. We have over a decade of data from many of those traps, and 60% in water or on the bank of everything you see right now is a plastic bottle, and that's by weight. We dump that bottle out before we weigh it, even the gross ones. The volunteers might not. Some depends on the volunteer and the bottle. We've seen the success of the bag fee and bag tax and now bag ban. We've seen the success of styrofoam ban, although it desperately needs more enforcement. The next thing is bottles, especially plastic bottles. When you get out of just the water side, right, the surface of the water in a creek, in the trap, or a bunch of volunteers kayaking or just working a park edge in the stream valley, we go from 60% plastic bottles by weight, right? We jump to about 50% of all litter. This is anything I can put in a bag, being some kind of beverage container, aluminum can, glass bottle, plastic bottle. And again, that stat for the broader area, all that land surface, we dump those bottles out. So this is a very conservative statistic, but a bottle law wouldn't even have to be 100% effective in DC and in Maryland to literally cut the trash in half, which seems like an incredible political opportunity, but it's one that we have not seen politicians take advantage of until very recently. It got out of committee this year, right, in the Maryland General Assembly for the first time. Yeah. Despite what opposition is saying in some DC hearings. And we have a bill live in DC for the first time since 1987. It's an incredible opportunity, and we need to keep this momentum going.
All right, thank you. We'll work on making more than getting out of committee, but hopefully becoming law. Councilmember Stewart. So Montgomery County has been a leader in the state in attempting to reduce single-use plastics in the environment. Can you share with us those policies and actions, some of which you've played a big role in, and how effective they've been, and in your view, what can be done to reduce microplastics in the environment now and in the future?
Yeah, so I'll focus on the Bring Your Own Bag bill that we did, and I want to thank folks here for that. And I think, as Trey was saying, you know, We learned a lot from other jurisdictions because Montgomery County had been a leader on these issues. And it actually wasn't until we got an Inspector General report that we found like our plastic bag fee wasn't actually doing what we thought it was doing here. I will say one of the reasons we got interested in that was because we had community members who reached out to us about the impact of the bag fee on people who got SNAP and WIC benefits. And we started just looking into, you know, how is our bag fee working? What is it doing? And we realized we weren't enforcing, which is a big part of these laws. And there wasn't a lot of education outreach going out to our businesses about it. We weren't collecting the fees like we were supposed to, and it really wasn't changing behavior. And so taking a step back and saying like, okay, what can we learn from other jurisdictions and what we were doing? And I just want to say thank you to folks in this room who really helped us, because we originally thought of, you know, just banning plastics and then having paper bags. But because of a lot of research that's been done, we realized that we needed to continue the bag fee even on the paper bags to really deter people from using single-use bags and bringing their own bags. So as you said, that goes into effect in January. We're really looking forward to getting the word out there. We see Rockville just followed along, so we have now a municipality that is coming along as well. We're hoping to get Gaithersburg as well, so that we get all our municipalities here in Montgomery County. And I will just say that I'm really looking forward to digging in and figuring out how we can do more on single-use plastic. One of the areas that our office is hoping to look into is in our own county government and how we do procurement and think about, like, the thing that honestly kills me is being at an event, particularly a Department of Environmental Protection event where we have plastic water bottles or we're using single-use plastic. So really thinking about how can we even just start with our own county government and getting away from single-use plastic and then expanding it out.
Thank you. And Jane, a research and science question here. So skeptics have maintained that the case for adverse human health impacts from microplastics is overstated, right? That there's no scientific proof that the ailments and the illnesses that we're seeing, you know, even in this, could be caused by other things. As a researcher, what do you say to that? I mean, how concerned should we be? And more specifically, what level of proof do we actually need to take action?
That's a good question. So the research really is in its infancy, but knowing that, there's a few important things to think about. And one is that we are all exposed every day, and the exposures are continuous. So it starts in the morning, it's with every meal. These are particles on our skin that are in the food supply, in the water we drink, even this water, although bottled water is much worse, and in the air we breathe. So we're exposed continuously, and that's the baseline. Most of the evidence for plastics comes from laboratory studies, and at this point, and the plastic particles themselves in these studies are linked to really basic kinds of harm, like triggering inflammation, damaging the immune system, disrupting the microbiome in the gut. So when you think about these really basic things, those are things that in the human body are linked to all kinds of diseases, everything from infertility to, you know, birth defects to cancers to obesity, on and on and on. So that when we see those basic processes being disrupted in lab studies, we really are concerned. But Pete Myers in the film mentioned another big concern, and that's where the data is much stronger. These particles are carrying with them into the body lots of different chemicals, additives that are known to be toxic. So these are things you may have heard of, like bisphenol A, BPA, or PFAS forever chemicals, phthalate plasticizers. And those chemicals are hormone disruptors. They can harm the developing child during pregnancy. They cause things like IQ loss and cancer and obesity and all kinds of problems. So that's where the evidence is really strong. And then the last thing I'll say is that in the past 10 years, we have been studying the effects of the plastic particles themselves in people. So while it's a really young science, we're seeing a lot of warning signs, things like sperm damage in men, or higher rates of cardiovascular disease, or higher, really startlingly high numbers of plastic particles in the brains of people with dementia. And when you add that whole picture together and you said, what does this mean and when should we take action? The answer is now. This problem is not going away. It's getting worse, and we're really concerned for future generations.
Thank you. And now I'd like to invite anybody who has a question to please come up to the, we've got 2 mics here. And we've got a great panel, right, who can address questions that you have thoughtfully. I suspect, and you're about to prove, that we have a great audience too, right? And so you know, one of the documentary showed examples from Rome, from Amsterdam, from Manila. You know, we've got it right here as well. So Kathleen, do you have the first question coming up right now?
Hi, thank you so much. This is incredible. I wanted to bring up they mentioned textiles. One of the textiles that's all over. Oh, so they mentioned textiles. One of the textiles that's all over our sports fields and outdoors now is synthetic turf. This is a square of it. Looks like grass. This is actually what's just scooped off of the surface of, in this case, this was Walter Johnson High School, just a single handful. So these break down into these. And I liked it when I talk about synthetic turf, I like to start out talking about the old comic strip, the Peanuts comic strip and the Pigpen character. All of us, when we're walking around, are surrounded by a cloud of invisible cloud of whatever it is, really, we're walking on the dust. And so we're kind of polluting all of our children who are playing on these fields. As they're playing on it, they're breathing in, they're getting coated in the plastics and whatever is used for the infill. If it's tire waste, it's the worst, but whatever they use on these fields.
So do you have a question of one of the members?
So my question is, what can we do to, you know, Kate Stewart, what can we do to get the county to stop this? The Board of Education, MCPS right now is proposing to cover all the rest of the sports fields that are left at the Montgomery County Public Schools that aren't in synthetic turf at high cost. And these things need to be replaced every 8 years or so. So they'll be starting from now, they say 1 to 2 per year, up to 5 per year, which is 440 tons of plastic waste as well. So what can we do?
So it sounds like that question is aimed mostly to Councilmember Stewart. And then, she answers, I want to give you a moment to think about it. I apologize, but also I want to invite other people, if you have other questions, to please come on up to the mic, and if you can, let us know who to whom your question is addressed. Councilmember Stewart?
I think you're right. I think MCPS right now, they're looking at their capital improvements budget, their projects, and having this conversation about the use of turf fields. I do think it is a conversation that we need to have more county-wide. I will say that we do have an Office of Legislative Oversight report that looks at this, and I know, Kathleen, you don't like that report, but there are questions about the use of turf, and also there are some equity questions that have been raised about how we do grass fields. And I'm not saying that we don't, that we use turf. I'm just saying I think it's a conversation that we're not having, and we have to have it right now. And because there are a shortage of fields for our students, and we need to look at both the impact on the turf and where we have access to fields in our community, and we're not having that conversation. We're just saying, go with the turf. And that, I think that's a problem right now. So I think it has to be a broader conversation.
Thank you. Next question. And to whom,
Hi,
to whom are you asking the question?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So what I'm concerned about is plastics at the household level. A lot of folks don't really know about the microplastics, or if they've heard of it, they just say, it's going to happen to everyone. There's nothing I can do about it. But there are some things that folks can do about it, and I'm interested to hear more. For example, those who don't compost, could there be a public awareness raising campaign, for example, to show the benefits of composting, if not in your backyard, like the town of Kensington has one, what the benefits are, especially children. How can we help them understand at very doable levels?
So we do have that. So there is a lot of education that our Department of Environmental Protection does on composting. We have a couple of pilot projects going on. There was also a project at the Farmers Market in downtown Silver Spring. So I think we can connect you with some of those resources. And then the other thing that I actually did with the Department of Environmental Protection was we actually went through my kitchen and looked at all the ways that we have gotten rid of single-use plastic in our kitchen, and from like ways of wrapping food to containers and the the produce bags that people showed. So really getting out and helping educate people about the different uses.
How do we get that person in our kitchen?
Right. Okay. Right. Well, we have to like share these things on social media, and also, I will say our Department of Environmental Protection really does an excellent job of getting out into the community, as well as some of the groups here as well. I think it's making sure that people are aware that there are these alternatives, because lots of people just default to what they know, and these alternatives also can be a lot cheaper to use, instead of going out and buying a lot of plastic and other things. Having reusable things that you wash is better for the environment and is also much cheaper for you.
Talk to seniors. The most seniors right now still remember a time when we didn't use plastic for everything. And the things worked, and people peopled, and we ate food quite successfully. It's not just about creating new solutions, right? It's in a lot of cases just unbreaking the systems that we're living in and going back to some things that used to work just fine. I did want to point out one equity issue with the microplastics, especially that shed into local streams. A lot of our environmental rules are based on a position of privilege, right? They're often written by people who are affluent and white. They're enforced by people who are affluent and white. And a lot of the people who aren't affluent and white don't have as much voice in this. You see a subsistence angling population in this very affluent region. There are thousands of people that are eating fish, not because they want to eat those fish from local waterways. That's the protein they can get. That's the protein they can afford. It's often not the person you see fishing, but someone is coming when you're not there and asking those anglers for what they can spare. And even if I've already gotten to that angler and told them the risks of lifelong learning and behavioral disability, of cancer in children born to women who eat those fish, if someone says, I'm starving right now, right, they're gonna give them that fish anyway. They may or may not transmit that other information. So we need to be very aware that these plastics are getting in, and in an environment like the Anacostia River, where we have 6 Superfund equivalent toxic hotspots on the banks of the river, just in DC, not the watershed up here, right? But just on the banks themselves. We have lots more in the rest of the watershed of toxic spots, including a lot of things that are petrochemical, like PCBs. We still see DDT, another petrochemical derivative, in the water when it rains hard. That's getting into those fish. It's getting into the plastics that are in the water. They soak them up, right? So it's not just physically tearing up the fish. These fish are getting extra toxic extra quickly because of microplastics. And the people who are most exposed already are the ones who are having to eat that fish. So there are some very severe secondary equity issues, right? Anytime we allow any microplastics into the environment.
Thank you very much. My hope is that if we can keep the questions appropriately short, we can get to all 3 questions right now before we run out of time. So please.
Well, thank you to this program that is so informative and so devastating. Thank you all for what you do and how you contribute to our society. My question is, do you know of research that can answer whether or not like refilling and reusing a plastic container over and over and over is like how long, like 5 minutes, 1 day, 1 week? How is there research that says how long before it actually leaches in? Because I just do that out of convenience over and over with plastic rather than throwing it away, getting new. I just keep reusing it. So if you know of research, great. Would appreciate that.
So reusing plastic is in a lot of ways better than just using and tossing. But reusing plastic can also be dangerous because, for instance, if you're refilling plastic water bottles, you can form bacterial films and you can be leaching out more toxic additives from that plastic as the plastic breaks down. You can be getting more and more microplastics shedding from that bottle. So when I think of solutions at home or our personal solutions, I often think of them in 3 tiers. One is the toss and the use and toss. The worst scenario is the single use. We often use reusable plastics. That's kind of the intermediate solution, like a hard plastic Nalgene bottle. But there's an even better solution, which is choosing a sustainable material instead that isn't going to shed microplastics, that's not going to be leaching toxic additives into our environment. So, when we were talking about solutions, personal solutions or action steps we can take, when you're thinking about actions to take at home, and there's a lot you can do at home, one thing to consider is things that you're just doing often and things that account for really large exposures. So water is one, and filtering your tap water can remove microplastics, certain kinds of filters. Just looking at your food, as we talked about, like getting rid of all those, plastic containers is another one because our food is such a huge source of microplastics for us. Using a HEPA filter vacuum at home can get rid of those microplastics in your house dust. And also just thinking about what you're putting on your skin. So choosing natural fibers or making sure your cosmetics don't contain microplastics as well, the lotions that you're putting on your skin. So lots and lots of things we can do at home actually to reduce our personal exposures. So it's not all hopeless. There's a lot of things we can do.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Next question.
This is a little bit related to the last question, that I imagine some kinds of plastic are more deadly or leach or break down and shed more than others. And my guess is that hard plastics are a little safer than the softer plastics. I don't know, but I'm thinking I like clean water, so I have a Brita filter, right? I'm pouring water into the filter, and whoops, the filter itself is made of plastic, but it's a hard plastic. I also heard somewhere that black colored plastic is especially deadly. So any comments on any of that from any of you, especially you on the left there?
Yeah, you may have seen the recent study about black plastic kitchen utensils, which are often made from recycled plastics. And recycled plastics can be particularly toxic because the recycling process can concentrate and add different contaminants to the plastic. So in the case of black plastic utensils, one thing that's commonly found are toxic flame retardants. And they're not supposed to be in the recycling stream, but they're from electronics that are mistakenly in the recycling stream. So the advice is really not to use those black plastic kitchen utensils and to swap out, for wood or stainless steel instead. Yeah, hard versus soft. So some plastics are surprising in the lab. We'll often send plastic containers or even containers with a very small plastic part. And sometimes that very small plastic part actually ends up shedding more microplastics than a whole big container. So it's not always easy to know what the outcome's going to be. We're doing a study right now that should come out in 3 or 4 months that looks at smoothie containers, plastic smoothie containers. And we're comparing the microplastics that come off of a plastic smoothie container into your smoothie, if you're making them at home, versus the number of plastic particles we find in a smoothie that's made in a glass container. And I know what I expect to find, but like I said, you're sometimes surprised. Maybe there's a small rubber gasket or something in these smoothie makers that in the glass that we're not expecting. So it's not an easy question to answer. The basic idea is in any place you can in your life, take a look. Where are you using plastic? How can you get it out of your house and out of your life? Is there a safer substitute you can make?
Yeah, thank you. I'm with a volunteer group here, Beyond Plastics, and it's wonderful, and I've done some research. I'm not going to talk much, but one of the things I'm interested in environmental protection, the Department of Environmental Protection, is I'm concerned about the myth of perpetuating the 7 grades of plastic when we know that only 1, 2, and 5 are really not even recycled. They're what they call downcycled. They're not used to make new bottles. So I'm interested, Councilmember Patterson, how could the Department of Environmental Protection really help people understand that so much of what they throw away is talked about? How can we help the county to take a lead in saying that what is not recycled is being burned here in the county? And people don't know that, and I'm learning so much myself. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said before, which is we need to, and I'm preaching to the choir here, we need to move beyond single-use period in plastics. And I think, the film did a great job talking to us about how the industry really monopolized on, the symbols and breaking down, because people think, what do we call it? Like wish cycling, because people think like, oh, I'll throw it in the bin and, pray that that's going to be recycled. And there's a lot of education we need to do for folks, but I think, and our Department of Environmental Protection has great charts and other things that they pass out to show people, here's what you can recycle, here's what you can't. The truth is, people are going to do what's easiest for them, right? And trying to distinguish, can I recycle this or can I recycle that, when you're finishing cooking dinner, cleaning up, and your child is crying and you need to get them to bed and the oldest one needs to get homework done. Let's just say, let's move beyond the plastics and try these other things, because I think it's that, I believe, is going to be a better way for us to have people change their behavior than to think that we're going to get people to start distinguishing between all these different plastic containers, because I'm not sure that's going to happen.
All right. Well, thank you very much. What I'd like to do is...
I've got a question for the audience, actually.
Hit it.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
Raise your hand if you called your state rep for this past General Assembly. How many of those hands were about the beverage container bill? Awesome. Hands down. Raise your hand if you called your state senator about the beverage container bill this past. If any of you are asking what you can do, raise your hand if you live in Maryland. So, there we go.
Well, I was going to do 2 thank yous and a mission statement, and he just did the mission statement for me, so thank you. So first, I'd like to invite the Sierra Club's own Shruti Bhatnagar to come up with gifts and token of thanks for our panelists for speaking tonight. I also want to thank our fellow environmental groups and our hosts for giving us our space tonight, and also special thanks to Carrie Wilcock and to Martha Ainsworth for helping to organize this tonight. And just to make that mission statement even easier and crystal clear, on your way out, right? Please grab a postcard, because we're pushing the state to be able to recycle and reduce, eliminate, ideally, a lot of plastic. But that only happens with action. And we're also pushing on Montgomery County to not be in the way of the state getting better. So we're also writing to our own county executive on the same front. So please grab one of these on the way out. Grab information from the tables on the way out, and let's keep this discussion and action alive. I hope you feel ready to go, empowered, and I thank you for participating tonight. Have a great night.